I'm going to spend 100 days in Soulmask, from building a gigantic airship, recruiting a massive army, and even fighting insane boss fights, to obtaining masks with divine abilities, exploring ancient dungeons, and even surviving a massive sandstorm. This game is absolutely crazy. We'll check out the new expansion, grow a massive tribe, and fight powerful enemies. This is the story of my first 100 days in the shifting sands. Thank you to Soulmask for sponsoring this video. After making my character, I needed to create a mask. This one seemed to improve my movement speed and give me the ability to glide and fly. When I finally regained control, I was standing on some kind of floating island. The view was insane. I could see inverted pyramids and flying ships in front of me. I then went up a broken ancient staircase, which led me to the mask. As I put it on, I shifted into a special form with wings and armor. The world shifted, and I began to fall towards the ground. Now, the game actually begins. Thanks to the mask, I could summon these wings and move freely through the air. I approached a nearby chest and found some basic gear inside, armor and other basic items. I took everything and tried out the weapons. My favorite by far was a huge hammer. I could just keep smashing it with massive swings. It felt amazing. With my weapon ready, I approached the boat, where some aggressive tribesmen attacked me. I looted the remains, gaining some healing items and money. Next, I discovered the technology tree. It was massive. Everything was divided by ages. I was currently in the rise of the barbarians, but I could advance into the age of bronze, the glow of iron, and more. Nearby, I opened a large chest that contained materials for ship customization, along with several crafting stations. Just as a heads up, what I'm playing here is the new expansion, Shifting Sands. You can jump straight into it without having to complete the base game. The items in this chest are meant to kickstart your progress so you can experience the new content right away. Oh, also, you can pick up the expansion for free for a limited time. Be sure to check the link in the description. I got into the starter ship and claimed it for myself. I could expand it by building additional flooring, installing deck foundations, and placing walls. I was only testing things for now. Later, we will expand it properly. Next, I installed a small wooden boat stern rudder, which improved steering and maneuverability. There was also a campfire on board, but it needed fuel. So I started harvesting plants on the island, collecting vine, fiber, and thatch. Finally, I had a working campfire. The place looked pretty cozy. I sat down in front of the fire and rested while watching the landscape. Here I opened the world map, which was huge. Most of it was covered in fog for the moment, but I could still see the different regions. Each area had its own level, meaning higher difficulty the further you went. I was currently in the starting zone. Looking north, I could see a place called Sunset Bay, along with mysterious ruins. That became my next objective. I needed to search the ruins to find an ancient relic called the mysterious stone table. It was already night, so I rested a bit longer to prepare for the trip. While doing so, more tribesmen suddenly appeared and attacked me. I dealt with them easily. The next day, I took control of the ship and began my journey. The sunrise was beautiful. Eventually, I arrived at the pier and spotted the entrance to the temple. I ran into more aggressive tribesmen that I had to defeat. One of them dropped stone throwing knives and a pair of linen shoes. I equipped them and tested the knives. They were pretty cool, but yeah, I ran out of them quickly. That's when I realized I also had a whip. I loved the attack animation. The range was huge. I could even spin it around like a whirlwind. Moving up the stairs, I came across massive statues and even more enemies. But most importantly, I finally found the mysterious stone table. When I tried to interact with it, turns out I needed green crystals and sandstone, which I did not have. Thankfully, I searched the area and found a chest containing some. Next, I opened the mask node repair menu. It worked like a skill tree of sorts, but for the mask, there was a lot here. The first thing I did was unlock the core functional module. After that, I was finally able to activate the stone table, which granted me the mask's control ability. This let me grab an enemy and deter them, which made them collapse to the ground. And after a few seconds, I was able to recruit them. I could check their stats like hydration, morale, and I could give them items, deploy them, and have them follow me. They also fought with me, and that wasn't all. I could even control them directly. I made sure to give them proper clothing and tools. We continued exploring the temple, clearing out enemies and looting. As the sun began to set, we headed back to the ship. Once aboard, I assigned one of the tribesmen to a grass mat on the floor, so they could travel with me. We sat around the campfire in the middle of the night. I was no longer alone. We were making progress. Checking the map, I noticed another point of interest called River Delta Scout. Once there, I discovered the barbarian camp. I dealt with the enemies and deterred the scout. That gave me tons of new info location. The fog of war on the world map was now cleared. I could see much more of the region, including a barbarian barrack, additional camps, and even a small mine. There were also question marks scattered around. My inventory was completely full at that point, so storage became a priority. I placed additional containers on board and organized everything. While opening a chest, I noticed I could define what type of items would be stored inside. This was huge, because my recruits could automatically deposit things they gathered. Plants could go into a plant chest, cooking ingredients into another, and so on. I placed a small collection yard on one of the nearby islands, and almost immediately I got attacked by wild animals. Thankfully, they didn't stand a chance. With that taken care of, I went back to one of my tribesmen and opened the work assignment menu. Here, I could choose different tasks like workshop collection. I selected the yard I just built. That's when things went wrong. My recruit collapsed right in front of me. He had no food. I rushed back to the ship and cooked food at the campfire. Then, another one of my recruits passed out as well. I was literally starving them. Poor guys. Thankfully, after feeding them properly, they got back up and all was fine. I went to check on the recruit I had sent to work, and he was already doing his job, cutting plants non-stop. I gave him some broth by placing it directly into his inventory, just to be sure he wouldn't pass out too. Next, I set up a loom on the ship. With it, I could make linen from fiber, along with basic clothing. After crafting some thick ropes, I was able to fabricate the linen costume. But that wouldn't be enough to survive out there. We needed better protection, like hide armor. To unlock that, I needed the leather gear skill, but it required a higher awareness strength level, 15 specifically. So I set off toward other islands to level up, fighting more enemies and recruiting more tribesmen. I also spent time chopping trees, mining stone, and crafting tools. All of these activities gave me XP to increase my awareness strength, which you can actually see as a bar at the bottom. Before continuing, Soulmask version 1.0 and the Egypt DLC Shifting Sand is available now on Steam. You can claim the expansion for free. You have until May 10th to get it, and it's yours. You can even start directly in the DLC without completing the base game first. The expansion is even larger in scope than the base game. It lets you build your home on an airship, explore a brand new map, fight new bosses, wear new powerful masks, and even just blueprints to generate incredible builds from other players. The game had over 60 consecutive weekly updates. It has a very positive rating on Steam, so be sure to check the link in the description and try Soulmask yourself. I gave the tools I made to my new recruit. She actually helped me cut trees alongside me, without having to give her any commands. Here, I also realized I had a character level, 18, which was different to the awareness strength level. I also had stats like perception, physique, strength, and so on, which I could also increase using some points. There were a lot of systems here. I invested heavily into physique to increase my health. The interesting part was that I could also switch characters and see their levels and stats, and assign points to them as well. Back at the ship, I cooked more food so we could all eat together. For a while, I just continued grinding XP, chopping trees, mining, and fighting. I managed to earn a weapon mastery. While checking the menu, I realized there was a wide variety of weapons. Thanks to leveling up the hammer and the whip, I unlocked new moves, some kind of special attacks. I kept taking down enemies to level up my awareness. Eventually, I reached the level I needed and got the leather gear skill. Back at the ship, I used the armor forging table to craft a set of equipment. With my defense improved, it was time to work on my offense by crafting beast bone weapons. But before that, I took control of the ship to get one of my recruits. I saw he was still on another island. I found him still working, and I ended up deleting his task so he would join us. Now that we were all together, it was time to make a plan. There was a limit to how many people I could recruit, so I checked the skill tree and found one called Connection Enhancement. This would let me recruit 6 additional tribesmen, but to go even further, I needed to level up my awareness even more. I set sail towards a location marked as a barbarian barrack. As soon as I arrived, I got attacked from all directions. I fought my way through using the mask to deter enemies while testing out the greatsword, which felt pretty solid. We ended up fighting all night. At some point, we got invaded on our own ship. The barbarians followed us and boarded it. There were so many of them. It was complete chaos. It became too much and I got us out of there. What I wasn't expecting was seeing one of the enemies still attacking the ship, suddenly jumping into the water trying to escape. We chased her down and started fighting in the middle of the ocean. It was insane. Thanks to my recruits, we were able to win. After that, I was left with only 4 tribesmen. We needed a new plan. Checking the map, I saw that 2 of my people were still back at the village. They hadn't made it onto the ship, so I now had 2 objectives: rescue them and eventually take down the entire settlement. But to do that, we needed more numbers and better gear. I went into the skill tree and unlocked bone weapons. Then checked the crafting bench. I was able to make a new hammer, which looked incredible. To craft more of these, I needed materials, so I went hunting. I found a massive alligator on the beach, but it didn't drop what I needed. Then, while walking along the shore, I spotted a guy in a canoe. I swam towards him and he immediately started attacking me. I tried chasing him and I spent way too long trying to catch this guy. Eventually, he swam towards the shore and I finally managed to take him down. After that, I started visiting random camps, deterring people just to build up my numbers. The problem was, my hammer had become so strong that I was killing them in 2 hits, which made recruiting a bit complicated until I reached the limit. At that point, I had 7 tribesmen on the ship. I thought maybe I could sneak in and rescue the 2 recruits back at the village, so I rushed in, tried to grab them, but they were down on the ground, and every time I tried to help them up, I got interrupted by enemies. The plan didn't work. If I wanted them back, I would have to actually fight for it. To make things more interesting, I went into the sandbox settings and increased the deployed tribesmen limit all the way up to 100, just to see how far I could push the game. I loved how much customization there was. I deployed every single one of my recruits to follow me into battle, but there were so many enemies that it didn't matter. Even with all of us, we were completely overwhelmed. There was no way we could win. Later on, I actually realized what was going on, and it has to do with this specific enemies with flame symbols on them. You'll see later. I respawned back on the ship. The good news was that my items were all inside a bag. The bad news, well, we lost a lot of people. The remaining survivors were still stuck on the island, and every time I tried getting close, I got swarmed instantly. Arrows started flying the moment I approached the settlement. I tried rescuing them anyway. Getting them back onto the ship was pure chaos. I managed to get Kayla and Atana with me, alongside with a level 14 outcast warrior. Then Hurek too. In total, 4 people were back to business. I decided to cut my losses. We'll come back later with a bigger ship and a stronger group. The next task was to head to the central island of 3 River Junction and defeat the Wild Wolf Tribe elite. That meant combat, so I started crafting better gear. I sailed towards my objective. On the way, I managed to deter an enemy scout, which ended up revealing a huge number of locations. Eventually, we found the camp of the Wild Wolf tribe, but just like before, it was packed with enemies. There were so many that, honestly, it felt like they were constantly respawning. My companions started dropping one by one, and once again, we had no choice but to retreat. Turns out, they were actually respawning constantly. So, the game has an alarm system, similar to the AC games. If the enemy camp bonfire gets lit, waves of support units will come non-stop at you. So this time, I tried getting rid of the guards from a distance with my bow and arrow, and then I destroyed the alarm before they got to it. Finally, we were free to siege this camp as we pleased. We absolutely destroyed every single one of them, including their leader. With that, the objective was completed. I was able to loot a warship container from them. This thing will be crucial for us soon. We also managed to rescue Kayla. She was about to be sacrificed, but we got her just in time. With the camp cleared, we returned to the ship with new recruits. Next, I focused on unlocking more technologies. I wanted to set up a building workshop, but there wasn't enough space, so I unlocked the ship building technique to expand it. I managed to squeeze in a workshop in a really tight spot right next to the steering wheel. It was temporary. The first thing I crafted was a wooden chest. I needed to free up inventory urgently. To expand the ship, I needed a lot of planks, so I started working at the carpenter's table, producing them one by one. I could assign someone else to handle the task, which I did, but I still kept doing part of the work myself for the experience points. As I started expanding the ship, I noticed a warning at the top of the screen. I was hitting a limit, exceeds building range of the deck. To make things more interesting, I took the game settings to remove the building limits entirely. I also increased the recruit limit from 20 to 1,000. Yeah, this will get a bit crazy. While sailing around, I looked up at the sky and saw flying ships above me with floating islands all around them. It looked incredible. After that, I went all in on expanding the ship. I wanted to see just how far I could push it, and it turns out there was no real limit anymore. I started building out some sort of massive bridge coming out of the ship, and I could go on and on. It looked insane. I even tried sailing and it worked. It clipped through the terrain as I moved, but it worked. Honestly, I could spend hours just building this thing, and that's what I did. I spent so much time building that my crew literally starved to death. Kayla died on the ship. Couldn't believe it. Now I made sure every single recruit had food in their inventory so it wouldn't happen again. At the same time, I started rearranging the grass mats so they wouldn't run into each other's paths. Here is a small tour of the ship. It was still a work in progress, mind you, and I was prioritizing functionality over looks. There was a lot of empty space, but we will use it later on. I needed to craft even more chests, but for that I needed leather, so I went out hunting. It took a while, but I managed to get what I needed and kept building. At one point, I assigned one of my NPCs to sort all of my items. This meant I could just dump everything into a container, and they would take care of putting all of it into each specific chest. Next, I unlocked even more technologies. To avoid having another food problem, I wanted to build a cooking stove, but to do that, I first needed a potting table to produce clay. It was a bit of a process, but once I had the materials ready, I finally crafted the stove. Here, I could assign someone to handle food. Hopefully no one would starve again. I also placed a table, which I think improved the tribe's comfort level. And to top it all off, I added a bathtub on the second floor. I could even use it myself. I unlocked another connection enhancement, increasing the recruit limit once more. There was one last upgrade left though, which would allow me to recruit 1,000 people. But to reach that, I needed an awareness strength level of 25, and I was only 22. With that in mind, I moved on with the next mission. I had to travel to an ancient pyramid to summon and defeat a boss. Before heading there, I did some fighting, deterred the scout, and revealed more of the map, clearing the fog of war around the objective area. As I approached, the pyramid looked incredible in the distance. I came across a strange structure. When I interact with it, I realized it was some kind of portal. I could unlock this as a fast travel point to this location using green crystals. After grabbing some at the ship, I activated it. Now I had a new teleport point. Continuing forward, I reached the gate of the pyramid, but it requires something called the Pyramid Guardian Mark to open. Right in front of it, in the middle of a lake, there was a ritual site, but I didn't have what I needed. I headed back to gather materials. Here, I came across the smallest, cutest donkey I've ever seen. It was so tiny. To get the necessary materials for the ritual, I set up a butcher's table and went out looking for an elite animal. I managed to find a humongous alligator. After beating the hell out of it, I used my knife to collect the loot. Now I was finally ready to summon the boss. Just to be safe, I hunted down another elite alligator to gather more materials. Then I returned to the ritual site and began the fight. We we got annihilated. 2 of my units died. When I came back, the crocodile was still there. So I tried again, but its health had completely reset. The second attempt went just as badly, and at that point it was clear I needed a better plan. I decided to retreat. One thing I knew had to improve was my armor. I considered unlocking bronze gear, but that required 25 awareness strength, and I was still below that, so I had no choice. I needed to grind. I set sail, looking for new enemies to fight and hopefully some recruits along the way. While exploring, I came across some kind of arena with a warrior inside, Master Hunter. I managed to take him down, and the loot was actually really solid. I got things like a bronze great bow and poison bronze arrows. After that, I kept fighting more outcasts and recruiting whoever I could. I managed to get pretty good armor from one of the bandits I killed. I kept pushing forward, expanding my tribe, grinding for XP, getting stronger, until finally my awareness strength reached level 25. I was able to unlock connection enhancement level 3, increasing my recruit limit massively to 1,000. Next, I tried unlocking the technology to craft bronze gear, but there was a problem. A notification said my tribe level was too low. I realized I could create a tribe through one of the menus. From there, I could see tons of stuff. The requirements to level it up were things like owning farmland, placing structures, and even defeating the crocodile boss. I wouldn't be able to craft the bronze gear until I took that thing down. I wasn't sure if my current number of recruits would be enough for the fight, so I decided to go out and find more. I spent a lot of time fighting and recruiting, placing grass mats for everyone on the ship, making sure they had a place to stay. At one point, I managed to reach 25 clan members. That felt like a solid number. Before the fight, I had to manually deploy every single unit so they would follow me. There were so many that they were all crowding around me. I could barely move. Nevertheless, I got everyone ready, and just as I was about to start the fight, I realized I was missing a beast bone. I had to go all the way back to the ship, but with that many people following me, I got completely stuck. I literally couldn't move. In the end, I tried to respawn just to get out of it. The problem was that it gave me a debuff. It reduced my max HP, which is the last thing you want before a boss fight, so I tried loading a save instead. Keep in mind, I'm really pushing the limits of the game here. You're not supposed to recruit and deploy this many people at once. Eventually, I managed to fix the issue by taking control of one of my recruits directly, which somehow unstuck everyone. After that, I had to deploy all of them again, one by one. Finally, everything was ready. We absolutely destroyed it in just a few seconds. Anyways, I used my butcher's knife to harvest materials and got some key items. With those, I was able to open the pyramid's gate, where I found an inscription that granted me tech points and talked about the Lord of the Swamp. There was also some ancient chests deeper inside, and some of the loot was insane. One of them contained wings, anti-gravity skids, and even an anti-gravity engine. We're gonna be able to fly. As if that wasn't enough, I found a new mask. It was called Abyss Overlord. After that, I activated a data update. There was a short cutscene with an energy burst, followed up by a tutorial. From what I understood, I might have just unlocked the ability to revive dead tribe members. Here, I could also change masks. My current one was Celestial Wings, but now I had access to Abyss Overlord. There were a lot more to unlock, but for now, I equipped the new mask, and I unlocked its transformation ability, which let me trigger a tide every few seconds and block incoming attacks. When I activated it, I looked like some kind of human crocodile. It was pretty cool. After a few seconds, a protective bubble appeared around me, which I assume blocks damage. We'll test it properly in combat later, but for now, we were finally making progress. So I headed back to the ship. The next step would be to install all the new parts and see what this thing could really do. I began setting up the wings, a couple on each side. To install the anti-gravity upgrade, I first had to repair the skid I was already using, which meant crafting stuff like hardwood planks at the carpenter's table. I also needed gauze, which could be crafted with flax, so I unlocked the technology to create farmland. To build that, I had to gather enough stones, which took a while. Eventually, I managed to place the farm directly on the ship itself. Here I could assign which crop to grow, but in order to assign someone to it, I needed to build a granary. That required even more resources like hardwood, stone, and thick rope at the loom. But once I took care of it, I watched as the recruit walked over to the farm and started planting the seeds. Then suddenly, they passed out right in front of me. Again, they had no food. Back on the lower level, more people were collapsing on the floor from starvation. So I stopped everything and focused entirely on fixing the food situation. That wasn't the only problem. I noticed another issue. The farm had zero hydration. If I wanted the crops to grow, I needed a water bucket. To craft that, I needed copper ingots. But first, I wanted to increase my tribal level, so I started working towards those requirements. I built a craftsman's bench and placed wooden foundations on land, since I couldn't build them on the ship. After that, I set up ground spikes as basic defense, and then moved on to the final requirement, building 5 farmlands. That meant a lot of stone mining. I spent a lot of time gathering clay and stone, but eventually I had everything I needed. When I checked the tribe menu, all objectives were complete. I upgraded the tribe to level 2. Finally, I unlocked the furnace technique so I could finally start making ingots. I kept mining even more stone in order to build the actual thing. With that done, I was now able to start processing ore. The thing is, I didn't have any. So I had to interrogate a scout to reveal information about the nearby locations. At the same camp, I looted a chest and got lucky. I found flax. That saved me a lot of time. With that, I crafted some gauze. I had everything ready and repaired the ship, which let me upgrade it into the anti-gravity skid. After installing the new engine and adding a power crystal as fuel, it was time to take off. We could move through the sky, pass over pyramids, almost touch the floating islands. There was a limit to how high we could go, but still, this completely changed everything. At one point in the distance, I spotted a massive tornado. I couldn't resist. I really wanted to see it from up close, so I flew straight towards it. Eventually, I reached the tornado. My health started dropping. Visibility was gone. I was fully inside the sandstorm. This area was called the Eye of Sands. It felt like some kind of endgame zone. It was incredible, but it didn't last. One by one, my crew started dying, their bodies piling up as I stayed inside the storm. So yeah, that's what happens if you fly into a sandstorm. I ended up loading an earlier save to keep going. Another thing I did was build a rainwater collector to make sure my tribe was properly hydrated. With the rain coming in, the collector worked perfectly. My flax crops finally started getting the water they needed. Next, I wanted to train my people, but to unlock a training ground, I needed a minimum awareness strength level of 30. So once again, it was time to grind. I went out to fight more barbarians and tested the new mask. When the bubble activated, it actually blocked incoming damage, and you could even see a symbol appear next to the damage numbers. After that, I spent the rest of the day working on leather so I could craft more chests. Storage was becoming a problem again. With that fixed, I continued grinding, leveling up bit by bit. Here, I discovered that my ship not only could fly, but it could also maneuver through the desert, almost like riding across the sand. I kept fighting, exploring, grinding, until I reached awareness strength level 30. I finally was able to unlock the tech for training grounds, or that's what I thought. A notification said my production-based tribe level was too low. I actually needed to reach tribe level 3, and to do that, I had to defeat another boss, the Anubis Hound, along with completing several other requirements. So I decided to focus on improving my gear. I started mining as much copper ore as I could. I would need a lot. By combining that with tin at the furnace, I was able to create bronze ingots. I also unlocked the technology for bronze weapons, but there was another problem. I couldn't craft a bronze hammer because my weapon crafting table level was too low. To upgrade it, I needed to craft a specific item, the weapon crafting bench part 1, and that required 76 bronze ingots. That was a lot. So I got back to work, mining and processing everything. I ended up crafting a huge amount, well over 100. With that, I was finally able to create the upgrade for the weapon crafting bench. At the same time, some of my flax and fig plants were ready, so I harvested those as well. With the upgraded bench, I crafted crafted a new hammer. It dealt almost double the damage of my old bone hammer. After that, I unlocked the technology for bronze armor, but once again, I ran into another requirement. I had to upgrade the armor forging table, which meant crafting even more materials like copper wire. It took a while, but eventually I did it. The bad news was, the bronze chest piece I crafted was actually worse than what I already had. It gave me less HP and slightly lower defense compared to the bandit armor I was using. So, at that point, I decided to move forward as I was, prepared to take on the next boss. There was a bit of a problem. My entire ship was almost empty. I only had 3 recruits sitting on grass mats, while a couple others were just standing underwater, doing absolutely nothing. When I checked the clan menu, it said I still had 24 members alive, so they weren't dead. I just had no idea where they were. Looking at the world map, I saw them scatter across different locations. I guessed that when I flew the ship before, they got left behind. So I had to go out and find them one by one, flying towards their positions, picking them up. I didn't manage to recover all of them, but I was able to gather a good portion of my crew back. With that, we headed towards the next boss, located inside an ancient dungeon. The place looked incredible. Statues guarding the entrance and structures buried in the sand. Here, I realized I could deploy my units directly from the tribe menu, which made things much easier. We entered the temple. After the fight, I collected the loot, including an anti-gravity core engine and a mysterious stone table. I also opened an ancient relic that contained a module for the Abyss Overlord mask. With that, we left the dungeon. The next objective was to locate the sunken city pyramid and summon Anubis. We won. I butchered their maze, gaining several key items. As I entered the pyramid, more rewards were waiting inside, including the new mask, Doomsday Judgment. This one was my favorite. And the best of all, we were just scratching the surface. This game has so much more content. To give you a small taste, here's another thing you can do. Build ships out of blueprints from other players. Instantly, the sheer possibilities are endless. I really look forward to what the community can make with these tools. Be sure to check out Soulmask on Steam with the link in the description. The Egypt DLC Shifting Sand is free to claim. You have until May 10th to get it, so be quick. Thank you to Soulmask for sponsoring this video, and thank you for watching.